So part of my past is having, because of a relationship with God like we all have. The Spirit said, do what I've called you to do, and I'll take care of the rest.
When you get into that space of realizing who you really are at a core, which is energy, then you can raise your vibrational frequency, your energy level, up to a level where you can connect and make that divine connection.
Black people in this country have to embrace ownership. We don't own anything. Therefore, all the dollars we get go out to somebody else who owns things.
Look for a miracle in America's mess and make a testimony out of your test.
Kind greetings and welcome to Triumphant Thursdays with Dr. PJ. It is so good to be here with you tonight, and we have a very, very special guest. The gentleman that was with us last Thursday. It is his wife tonight. The Reverend, soon to be doctor, if not already doctor, Mrs. Dian Griffin Jackson Davis. Before we bring her on, we'd like to remind our listening audience and to ask of our listening audience that you would call someone, that you would text someone, that you would be in contact with friends and family members and colleagues and neighbors, asking them to join us tonight on Triumphant Thursdays with Dr. PJ. And we also want to remind our listening and viewing audience that our show, our broadcast, our time together, it invites us to think of, be reminded of, to be mindful of the victories that we do experience in our lives in the worst of times. I read somewhere just today, after the announcement, after I got a phone call from a federal veteran who was triggered by what we woke up to, which was the invasion of the Ukraine. In all of that darkness, I insisted that we find some light to talk about. And even when people say there can't be any victory, there can't be any light, there can't be any silver lining in this terrible situation. There's always a silver lining. And we are going to hear more about that. And I am excited to bring on someone who has several victories for which she could speak of, several triumphs that she could address, several things, situations that by God's grace and through prayer and fasting and weeping and waiting, that she has overcome. My colleague in the ministry, my longstanding friend, whom I call Rumi, because for a good 25 years we served on the same national boards of the United Church of Christ, and it happened that we were always roommates. And I think that the point was that the national setting of the church was making sure that the North was connected with the South and the East was connected with the West, and that there was this opportunity for us to learn of people that were not in our region. And it has been a delight to have been her friend and her roommate. And we haven't been roommates since she got married, and since both of us are no longer on national settings of the board. However, I'm wondering if we ever get back to the point of face-to-face meetings. if there is a possibility that we will be roommates in the future. That notwithstanding, ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, friends and foe, please give a rounding applause. We may not be able to hear it, but we will feel it. Please give a rounding applause to this incredible woman of God, minister of God, ordained of God, anointed of God, and author, anointed author, the Reverend Dr. Mrs. Diane Griffin Jackson Davis. Hey, Rumi.
What am I supposed to do with all of that, Chaplain? Oh my goodness, it is so good to be
But
here
it's all
tonight.
true, sis. I don't know, maybe I never expressed it that way to you, but yeah, I've been watching your life a
Thank you.
long time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coming through, you've come through a lot of trials.
Yeah.
You've climbed a lot of mountains.
Yes.
You've
Yes.
gone through many valleys, including, just to give the audience some idea, you lost a child,
Mhm.
right?
Oh yeah, my oldest child was shot and killed in
Yes.
a home invasion in Durham, North Carolina. Franciscus
Say,
James Dixon. Yes. Yes,
okay.
baby. Wow.
You've been you've been through, I think, did your husband die also?
One of them did.
Yes, one of your husbands died. I
Yes.
mean, just those two, we could stop right there and have a conversation for
We
the
can
rest
have a
of the night.
conversation. Yes, we could.
And that is centered around your book.
Mhm.
I just got my book today, ladies and gentlemen, but I do want to put in the chat how you can get this book.
Mhm.
The name of the book is
The Phoenix Rising from the Ashes.
The Phoenix
Yes.
Rising from the
Rising from the
Ashes.
Ashes. Yes.
And she gives us a little bit of her story, a
A little
little
bit.
bit of the story, because all of these stories are not her story, but a little bit of the story every night live on Facebook.
Yes.
And we're going
Yes.
to ask you later on if you will read one of your
Oh,
stories, if you'll share one of your stories with us. But I have a different question that I'd like to start out
uh-oh.
with.
Okay.
And again, thank you for coming to our broadcast tonight. I appreciate that. And again, I am still grateful for your husband's
Yes. Yes.
broadcast last
Yes.
Thursday. He's a star. He's a star.
Yes, he is.
And as soon as we can find a place to create a star and put it on some pathway, we're going to do that. But a question
Mhm,
about the
mhm, mhm.
conflict that started overnight.
Really?
How I think my question is, how could you write a book that would give us some answers? This book gives us some answers as to how you are experiencing Phoenix. But how can our service members that have been recalled and the families that have been left behind, and as the wife of a veteran, you might have a little bit of a glimpse as to how our veterans also are able to experience Phoenix at a time like this.
Mm. Oh, Chaplain, that is a powerful question. And I have to confess, it's one that have not given a lot of thought to today. But as you said, I am the wife of a veteran, a Vietnam veteran. And because he does share some pieces of that, not a lot, but some pieces of that with me, I know how horrific and how horrendous that part of his life was for him. Of course, as he expressed last week. So I won't go into that. And so I probably will sound selfish right now by saying I'm thankful to God tonight that my husband is beyond the age where they will recall him. because that was such a traumatic experience. I just don't think someone can live through it twice, and be okay. I know some people have, but I don't think you can ever be okay just from meeting him these past 5 years and a half and knowing him and knowing how he has had to redefine his whole life, based just re-identify who he is, and all of that. So I would say tonight that this is a horrible situation. There is no question of that. And it is sad, in my opinion, that there is so much greed in the world. And I do believe that all war is based in greed of some kind. Regardless of
Absolutely.
what country starts it, regardless of what reasons the country gives for starting or what, even our country. And I'm not going to, act like we're just, little innocent babes here as Americans. We are truly as culpable and as guilty as any other country. When we
Yes.
see what we want, our political leaders find a way to go over there and take it and then make it and convince us, or at least attempt to convince us, that it's for the good of those people, or whatever they're doing. And so it hurts my heart today to know that we now have young men and young women who will be called to rise to the challenge, who will be called to fight perhaps a war that they have nothing at all to do with, probably don't
Nothing.
even understand what's going on. Mothers and fathers, children will be, missing their parents, their sons, their daughters, because of this. And I know that right now, the America is not planning to go to war, but all we need to do is look at the history. We look at the history, and because we have not really learned from our history, we continue
Right.
to repeat the history that we've already learned. And so I would simply offer to those of us who are stateside, if you will, those of us who are left behind, to care and to cry and to worry and to be concerned about our veterans. I would say to us, remember the God that you serve. If you are a faithful, if you are a believer, if not, just remember the good that the good that is in you, the good that is in that person that has now gone and will be going to protect. That's what they'll tell us anyway, to protect our country. Remember them in the highest of lights and hold them so tenderly, in your hands. Hold them
Yes.
so gently and just call their names every chance
Yes.
you get so that they can feel, right? They can feel that presence. They can feel your love way over there, thousands and thousands of miles away, and they
Sure.
will know that they are not alone. But we have to do that. We have to let them know that we love them and that we care.
I appreciate that, Rev, because I tell you, all day I've been listening to between MSNBC
Mhm, mhm.
and Karen Hunter, the talk show host Karen Hunter, and Clay, I want to say Clay Evans, but the last name may not be right. I may
Uh,
be thinking of the late Reverend Dr. Clay Evans. But I've
okay.
been listening to these programs, and only one person all day long
Mhm, mhm,
has mentioned Gog and Magog. And I'm
uh-huh,
saying to myself,
mhm,
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let's
mhm.
not be talking about the end of the world and the apocalypse and the end times. Let's not go there.
Let's
Not
not go
today.
there. Not,
And
not.
and, and you and I thank God for bringing the question to the floor, because I wonder, well, what are our ministers thinking about this, and how are our churches, or are our churches and our ministers,
Yes, yes,
talking about
yes.
the impact, the permanent impact, the negative impact
Mhm, mhm,
that this has on service members. I mean, your
mhm,
husband and I will go to
mhm.
our graves
Grace. Yes, yes, yes,
traumatized.
yes, yes, ma'am.
And they said something last night, or maybe it was night before last, that they were recalling people, Ukrainians, as old as 60. Now, when somebody asked me the question a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
do you think that you will be recalled? My response was, if they recall me,
Yes.
everybody needs to bend over and kiss their stuff goodbye.
Mm.
I was very careful not to
You're a
say it.
very careful preacher. You have to turn into a Medea though, like hell to the no. You do what you want to do, but I go to
Exactly.
Canada before I go to
I
Ukraine.
heard that. Yeah, I've done my war. Your husband has
Yes,
done his war. And
yes,
I don't
yes,
intend, even though when we raise our hands and we take that oath, we
yes.
belong to the United States
That's right.
Department of
That's
Defense.
right.
I understand
Right.
that, but let's
Right.
have a little bit of common sense here. If
Yes.
we have that
Yes.
ability,
Right.
I'm beginning to think that the world, that the leaders of the world
Yes.
have lost their common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you're
Mm-hmm.
right. It's always about greed. It's
It
always
is.
about, because the rich get richer every time there's a war,
Yes.
and the poor gets poorer.
Yes. Every
You know,
time. We can't even
every
put gas in our car. We can't even afford to put gas in our cars, but it keeps
that's right.
becoming more expensive. So
Yes,
somebody is pocketing the proceeds from that money.
absolutely,
It is not me. It's not me.
absolutely. And
Yes.
your husband was right a few minutes ago, and
Mhm.
I'm just going to agree with him. We can't believe
Mhm.
what we hear.
Mhm.
With
Mhm.
the politicians are professional liars. They know, and when I say professional liars, they know how to answer your questions without
Without
answering your
asking.
questions. They know how to put just enough of a spin on their propaganda,
Yeah.
so you're really
Mhm.
not sure
Yeah.
of where they are. And
Yes.
unfortunately, similar stuff is happening in the military. Hey, we're just following orders.
Yes.
We don't have an
Yes.
understanding of why we're following these
Mhm.
orders.
Mhm.
We don't ask. Now when the orders went out that we had to wear masks, it is the first time I've ever heard of the service members challenging the authorities.
Oh,
And they did.
and
So
they
so
do.
so maybe we're all beginning to say, okay, I hear the order, but you
Uh-huh.
got to give me an explanation.
Mhm. Mhm.
You got to tell me why.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, and I'm grateful for that. And let me share with you, in addition to what your husband just wrote, and Pastor Sue put it across the front. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not. So I'm going to ask her to put it across the front again. But Mickey D, the bike dude, wrote, incredible preacher. She's called the fireball of the South.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Now, see, I didn't know that about you, that you were the fireball of the South. I knew you were an incredible preacher, but not the fireball of the South.
Perception. It's all
Well,
relative to who's speaking. And
well,
this
but
was
you,
this was
but
another
see,
pastor who told me that at his church one Sunday.
is
He,
that
he
right?
he labeled me the fireball of the South, and my husband has never forgotten that. So
That's
I hold my own okay. I do all right.
Yeah, well,
I
I
do.
don't
Mhm.
consider you a bench jumper, but I tell you what, or even a hooper. But you
Oh, don't.
say, but you do preach.
Well, I can hoop when I need to, sister. Don't get it twisted. I hear the
Awesome.
voice of the Lord say,
Okay.
worship
Indeed.
in
Indeed.
America
Yes.
and all
Yes.
of the United Nations. Y'all better get right with God. Let me stop.
Yes,
Yes,
indeed.
yes, ma'am. We jest here. We do jest, but it's not because we do not understand the seriousness of what is going on right now and the consequences. There would be so many innocent lives lost, babies, pregnant mothers, fathers who all they want to do is take care of their families. Excuse me, I was reading an article today. I forget who posted it on Facebook, but he said that this particular person owned a restaurant. You might have seen that. He owned a restaurant, and when he realized that Russia was going to invade, he had decided to close this restaurant and move out of the country, move out of Ukraine, and leave the restaurant as a bomb shelter for his staff. But then he said the more he thought about it, he remembered, and I wish I could remember the story completely, but he remembered how that restaurant had been a haven for so many. How many meals that they had shared in that restaurant together, how many
Yes.
stories they had told together, the lives that they had forged,
Mm-hmm.
the staff and him and the customers. So he said,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't go. I'm going to stay right here, and every day
Wow.
eat a meal until we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but I'm going to stay right here with my staff and with my customers, and we are going to share a meal. And like you just said, and look for that bright horizon. Because
Yes.
even in this chaplain, even in this, I just call you Dr. Pamela June. You remember that?
That's okay.
You wouldn't let me call you by some. You the only one I'm going to let call me some Pamela June. When we were roommates back in the day. But anyway,
Yes.
there is hope, and I'm a preacher, so I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed of the gospel
Yes.
of Jesus Christ. And so, even though I know I have friends and even family who might not share the same faith that I do, my whole life has been rooted and grounded in the hope that I believe that Jesus Christ offers us. Okay,
Yes.
when my
Yes.
son was shot and killed, right? It took me just so many emotions and things were going on in my head. And he also was Navy. He served in the military. Wasn't killed in
Mm-hmm.
the military, but he did serve. And so many things went inside of my mind, right? And it took one of my brothers to tell me, because I didn't want to preach anymore. I was like, what kind of God is this? What is going on? This kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And one of my brothers said to me, my brother Earl said to me, sis, you are going to have to preach your way through this.
My.
You see? And so where I had planned to cancel, because I was not pastoring at the time, but where I had planned to cancel all of my preaching, engagements, I decided, okay, you want me to go and preach to these folk? Just be ready for whatever come out of my mouth.
I heard that.
Right? Because I'm going to be real, because this is some serious, serious, serious times, And so that's what I did. I
Mm-hmm.
stood with the people, before the people, with them, and I told them, I said, I'm hurting. I don't even know what I'm going to say to you right now. I know I wanted to cancel, but I had to believe, chaplain, I had to believe that I could make it through. And this is what I'm going to say to the soldiers, our veterans today. Believe that you can make it through this. Even the people in Ukraine, they are our sisters and brothers. They are family. And they need to believe that they can make it through this and just grab hold to whomever they need to grab hold to and hold on to that hope. Even in the midst of death, hold on to that hope. Hold on to that. And I truly do believe, that things will get better. I can't say when, which is why I don't like that Gog and Magog stuff. Excuse me, I got some good sanctified people on the call tonight, but I don't care much about that because people have been preaching end times. You already know that since when we were
Yes. Yes.
born.
Yes.
We're just coming back next year. We're gonna be back in another
Right.
20 years. My mama told me Jesus was on his way back. Her mama
See.
told her that. I used to tell
Yes.
my children that, and now they are
Yes.
older than I am. they're
See.
not they're not telling their children that though. They don't believe. So we need to stop and say that we are the reasons, the people in this earth and the leaders that we vote for. We are the reasons that there is war, that there are rumors of wars. It's us. So what are we going to do about it? When are we going to stop
What are we
uh,
going to do about it?
rubber stamping that our children are going to join these branches of the military because we know they could lose their lives at 18,
Absolutely.
19. When are we going to
And
stop?
a lot of them, a lot of us, but more men than I think women,
Uh-huh.
I think,
Mhm.
have come back because I try to go to a support group
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
week.
Mhm.
And one of the guys made the statement that when he came back, his mother took him to her doctor and
Mhm.
said, I don't know who this is. I don't
Okay.
recognize this. I don't.
Mhm.
This is a whole new, different
Oh,
person.
yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
one of your one of the people on the on the chat on the comments,
Uh-huh.
Mercedes Diane Griffin Forbes.
Yes, man.
You
Yes,
know
my
who that
niece.
is?
Uh-huh.
She has
She's my
made
niece.
the statement. That's
Mhm.
your
Niece.
sister-in-law
Niece.
niece.
Yes. Mhm.
Made the statement that humans are not built to handle killing our own kind. Well, that
Yes,
depends
there it
on.
is.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know, in
Our
a way,
mind.
I agree with her, but in a way, our other brothers and sisters of a different hue have been doing this almost at the drop of a hat. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they came over here from the get trying to trying to get away from persecution. And what did they do? They brought the
Persecuted.
persecution
Yeah.
attitude with them. And
Yes.
that's what happened with our the Native
Yes.
Americans. That's what
Yes.
happened with the enslaved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But
so those of us who are human,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it damages us to kill
Mm-hmm.
another human being.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes when you think of the Greeks who did this for sport, not the Greeks, the Romans, who did this
Yes.
for sport.
Yes. They had
Now,
their yes. Yes.
maybe
Yes.
something has happened to their minds that hasn't happened to our minds, but I am just devastated going to the funeral of a 23-year-old service member and
Yes.
hearing a preacher that's got 323-year-olds in front of him, and
Right.
all he wants to do is bitch about not going to war.
Yes.
What kind of no compassion,
No compassion.
nowhere, no words
Mhm.
of comfort for this family?
Mhm. Right.
Just saying, well, if you go to war, you get what you deserve. That is not
Mhm.
the right
Mhm.
message.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
don't know what to say about some of our ordained ministers. This was a Baptist minister this time.
Right.
And I
But
made point from that day forward. I said
mhm.
we got to take a different look at
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. But can we go back to her statement though that we're not built to kill each other? I think
Yes, Pastor Sue.
uh, um I'm sorry.
No, I
No, I
said
mean,
Pastor
yeah,
Sue.
she said that we are not built to kill each other, our own kind, that our minds can't handle it. I want us to go back to that for a moment because I think that there is some truth in that. And the reason I say that is, and of course, I'm a preacher, so I'm going to go back to the Bible again here. I remember
Okay,
when the first killing that we read about in scripture when Cain killed Abel.
his
Remember
own
how
brother.
remember how Cain hid himself? He was ashamed. He couldn't take it. He wasn't prepared for the consequences of killing another human being. So I don't think that statement means that we don't kill each other. But I think for me, what I'm getting from that is, yes, we do kill our own kind, but when we do, something goes haywire inside of us. Somehow or another, the DNA, the wires, the whatever, the systems get all mixed up and messed up, and we can never be
Hmm.
the same. We can never be the same. And so I think there is some truth to that. And I don't think it has anything really this time to do with ethnicity, even though I have questioned how some people can come and just kill another group of people just like nothing. I
Hmm.
have questioned that in terms of slavery and in terms of the Native Americans here in the country and all these kinds of things. But then when I see husbands can kill wives and sons can kill their own mothers and this kind of thing, I'm thinking something has happened in us mentally
Hmm.
that we can go there and then walk away and laugh and it's okay. That's
Hmm.
not a
Hmm.
saying. That's not a normal. So yes, something does happen when we kill each other.
And when we come
And
back,
even when we're ordered to.
yes, yes.
Hmm? No, go
When we
ahead.
come back, we want to extend this conversation to the role of God in all of this.
Mm.
And when I
Okay.
say the role of God, a lot of people will say, like with the COVID, that God sent COVID to get our attention, or they'll say, well, whenever you have a serious problem, God is trying to tell you something. And all of these volcanoes, and 183 of them around the world spewing, erupting. So just let's have that conversation. We'll be right back, ladies, gentlemen, friends, foe, sisters, brothers. Don't move that dial. Stay right here. We'll be back momentarily. Call somebody else to join us. We would greatly appreciate it. We're talking about on Triumphant Thursdays, we talk about the triumphs in our lives and the victories in our lives, and the phoenix that we will be hearing more about when we come back is going to be talking about the ways in which our beloved friend and colleague is continuing to overcome those disappointments and devastating times in her life. Pastor Sue, carry on, please.
Well, welcome once again, everyone. We're so happy that you are here. So grateful that Reverend Diane G. Jackson Davis is with us, and I'm so excited. I just hearing what you said already. I'm just so excited for the other half of our program tonight, and particularly learning more about the book, and and why she wrote it, and some of the stuff that's in it. So we are, again, so happy that you joined us on Triumphant Thursdays with Dr. PJ Anderson. And we do ask, as she has already asked you, to share tonight's broadcast, and I'm inviting you to please continue to engage in the conversation by posting your comments, but we also want you to post some questions too. So, I'm sure that Reverend Diane is open to your questions, and we want to hear from them. So, if you haven't already, if you're not watching on our Facebook pages, we want you to like our Facebook pages at SFG Without Walls and at Chaplain PJ. And we ask that you follow and subscribe to our Twitter and YouTube channels at Dr. PJ Anderson. If you are a veteran, and we are talking about this decision, this Ukraine decision, if you're a veteran, you identify as LGBTQI, we do have a Tuesday program, and we want you to join our group on Facebook, the National TFAM National Veteran Support Group, the Veteran Among Us LGBTQIA Veterans Plus. It is co-moderated by Chaplain PJ and also Chaplain Maureen, who is not with us tonight. She's usually with us. And so if you are a veteran, if you identify as LGBTQI, you're a veteran, or you are an ally, we do invite you to like our Facebook page and to join our group on Facebook. And when we come back with our programming in April, I believe, yes, because we're away from March. When we come back with our programming, we want you to be kept up to date on all that is happening. Beyond the Gatekeepers on Wednesday evenings with Bishop Yvette A. Flunder, Dr. Vanessa M. Brown, and Bishop Carlton D. Pearson. You can find us in two places on Facebook, at Yvette Flunder and also at Beyond the Gatekeepers. On Twitter, you can find us at Big Gatekeepers, and on YouTube at Beyond the Gatekeepers. And so we invite you to join us in dialogue every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, and I believe it is it 6 o'clock CT? No, 7 CT, Lord, 7 o'clock. I'm still getting used to Central Time, so 7 o'clock Central Time. So we invite you to join us on Wednesday evenings. Kara Solutions, focus on your passion, let Kara handle the rest. I offer remote production and video conferencing administration and tech support. An example of remote production is what you're watching right now. This program is remote produced by Kara Solutions. Let Kara do the heavy lifting so that you can focus on your event. And so part of that is by offering custom branding, show development, and training. And so for more information on a wide range of services, you can visit our website at www.cara-solutions.com. And if you have an idea for your own broadcast or podcast and you're not sure how to get it started, I'm a great conversation partner. And you can contact me for a free consultation by emailing sue@cara-solutions.com. There are advertising and sponsorship opportunities available at Triumphant Thursdays with Dr. PJ. There are 3 ways that you can do this. The first way is through a info listing or a banner. That's an example of one. And here in this section, we put your product, your service, your ministry, information about what you would like to promote, and it will be announced during our break time. That's at $15 per week. The second way that you could advertise or become a sponsor with Triumphant Thursdays is via a static overlay, a flyer ad, or a promo graphic, which is what you're looking at right now. It covers up the entire screen, and again, you can announce your product, your service, your ministry, your organization, an upcoming event here, and that's at $25 per week. And the last way is with a video ad at $40 per week. And here's an example of one. Again, that is an example of a video ad. And so if you are in the market for a static or video ad, you can also email me at sue@cara-solutions.com. If you just desire to sow a seed, we invite you to sow a seed into this ministry. If this programming has been a blessing to you, we invite you to donate. And you may do so 2 ways. The first is via Cash App at $Triumphant Thursdays. Or you can send a paper check to Space for Grace Without Walls, UCC, P.O. Box 23173, Lansing, Michigan, 48909. And so we're so appreciative of all of the ways that you support Triumphant Thursdays with Dr. PJ Anderson. So we are getting ready to go back, hand the program back over to Dr. PJ and our guest for this evening, the Reverend Dian G. Jackson Davis.
Wow.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I was muted and didn't realize it until I looked down at the contribution that you just sent in, and we thank you again. Reverend, you sent one in last week, you sent one in this week, and you sent one several months ago. We appreciate your support. And for your next anniversary, send us an opportunity to announce it to our listeners that the Reverend and the deacon tied the knot. Soon it'll be 6 years ago. By the way, how did the two of you meet?
Oh, now it takes him to tell that story. But it is a beautiful one. I think we met online actually. We met online, and it was uncanny the way it happened because the day that we met, we had both without knowing each other or knowing each other's minds, had decided that we were just going to go on online and just delete our profiles from this site called Plenty of Fish. And so we didn't know that until, of course, we had met. But when I went online, he just happened to be there. And, I saw his profile and obviously he saw mine. And I really think it was me. I really think it was me sitting on that motorcycle that got his attention. He claims that he didn't see that one, but that was the only one I had up there. But anyway, and so when I saw him, I sent him a message right then and said, I said, and told him my name, and I said, I'm getting ready to get off Plenty of Fish because I'm not interested. I've met some crazy wild people, and it's too much. I don't want to do this anymore. And he responded that he also was only reason he was on it because he was deleting his profile. So we exchanged email addresses. He sent me his, sent him mine, and then deleted our profiles. And I received an email from him almost immediately and responded to the email. And he sent me a poem almost immediately. And Chaplain, it was so pretty. And he has a way with words. He still does, by the way. He knows exactly what to say, when to say it. Okay. So I can't even get angry with him because he knows what to say. So anyway, and the rest is history. We set up we met in February. So this month, Valentine's weekend, we scheduled a date, but then it snowed that weekend and it was cold, and I am not a cold person. I don't like cold. So I called him and said, we're going to need to reschedule. It's too cold. I cannot come meet you at the meeting place, whatever. And he said, well, I'll come to Rockingham. And I'm like, you're going to come all the way from Evermore to Rockingham in this weather? It was like 20, it was cold and snow. But he said, oh, I don't mind. So we met at Fats Restaurant. And he walked in. It was, like I said, it was Valentine's weekend. And I got there before he did because I wanted to see him first, right? And he walked in this long black, it looked black. He said it was gray, but this long black coat reminded me of, what's his name, sweetheart, on what's the man's name? Tell me. But he reminded me, and I love this guy on TV. He's a police officer, a commissioner. What's the commissioner's name? New York? NYPD, anyway, reminded me of him. And I'm like, And he had like candy in one hand, flowers in another, something else, just all these goodies. And I'm thinking, okay, all right. And we just kept talking. He thought he was going to get a kiss that night too, by the way. He really did. I let him pick me a little bit. Of course, he swears out he never tried to kiss me. I'm like, yeah, darling, you did. You did. But that's how we met. And, we continued to go out and meet, not in each other's homes, but just out, out and about, and continued to meet until, I don't know, we just sort of jived. We just sort of hit it off, and it was good. He's a cyclist, and I always enjoyed seeing him in his, I call it uniform. They have another name for it, kit. I enjoyed seeing him in his kit. He could wear it very nicely, wore it very well. Good. And on that bicycle, he could sit that bicycle in a really nice way. And it was like, okay, I'm gonna have to find out a little bit more about you. And that's what happened. And that was we will be married 6 years, December 30th of this year. 6 years.
December 30th.
So we met in February. We met in February. We married 10 months later. He asked me to marry him at the end of one of our worship services at church. He should even got down on his knees and asked me to marry him. Oh, yeah.
Get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
Shall we tell her, Pastor, what hubby is saying down there?
Uh-oh. Oh, my goodness. She fell in love with me instantly. She couldn't help it. He's a sweetheart, though. He truly is a sweetheart.
I tell you what, in all of the years that I've known you, I've never ever seen this much peace, and you smile a lot more than you used to, and I can feel the joy and I can see the
Yeah.
peace. And I
Yeah.
thank God.
Thank
I
you.
thank God that
Yeah.
Mickey D, the biking dude, that
Yeah.
he came
Yeah.
into your life. So you were in the same
Yeah.
state, but different cities.
Right. Right. About an hour apart. Didn't
Okay,
know
all
it,
right.
but yep. He was in Albemarle, which is where we live now, and I was in
Mhm.
Rockingham in the church.
Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Outstanding.
Hmm.
Also happy that you're still
Yeah.
with the church, and which is what we were kind of leading into somewhere along the
Yeah.
line. You were talking about hope, no matter what. So, what do we say to the service members, and the veterans' families, and the service members' families that often say in circumstances like this, okay, I'm done. Just like you said, I'm done.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
how can a God tell me on the one hand that God loves me, and on the other hand, everything but love is going on in my life?
Hmm. Hmm. And I think that would depend on the extent of the relationship that the person has with God, because of course all veterans, all parents, all relatives don't have that. There's a lot of people who don't even have a belief in God, but they do believe in the good of humankind. And so if they need to hold on to the belief that there is some basic good in everybody, and those who do have that deep rooted faith in God through Christ Jesus, they can just look through the stories, the biblical witness, and they can also see that, I've been there before. Those who have been there before, I've been there before. I went through that hell and I went through all of that. I thought I was not going to make it through. And yet, because of in their opinions, because of prayer, because of my faith, I just kept holding. And even when I couldn't hold, God was holding me. And I didn't know that until when I look at me now and see where I've come from. You see where I've come from. So the families, they do understand, I believe, that when your child does sign up, they have signed up for a commitment to go wherever they're called. Now, whether they want it to happen or not, of course not. But most people today, when you sign up on that dotted line, you know that there is a chance that your child or that you yourself will be called to serve in a wartime zone. And so you just trust that if you ever are, you will come back okay. You have to believe that, because there's people who are depending on you. There are people, your own partners, who are depending on you over there. So you can't go into it with fear. You have to go into it knowing that you are not going by yourself, but there are several service people all around you, military people all around you. You got their backs, they have your backs. Ultimately, God has all of your backs. And even if some of them do not come back the way they went, okay, or they give the sacrifice of their lives, we still have to believe that there is a good reason, a good cause for what happened. Otherwise, we'd go kind of bananas, no question of that. Because death is
So
never good when it's like a waste.
so before we ask you the question that Kadada Dixon asked,
Kadada, Kadada.
I want to highlight, ask Pastor Sue to highlight what your husband said. Um, hey, I was proverbial. There it is. I was proverbially
Cool.
in the basement
In the
digging.
basement,
I kept
digging
curtains
a
tight
hole.
closed. I was
I was
done.
done.
Then she walked
Then
in.
she walked
Now
in.
that she could have been the
Mhm.
Holy Spirit. I suspect that she is you, however.
Probably. I'm
Oh,
sure the Holy Spirit came in through me, but I expect that He is referencing me at this moment. Yes,
oh
and
my
because the
goodness.
Holy Spirit is in, it's all the same. It's all good. Yes.
Look at that love.
Okay,
Look at
so
that love.
before he just shares all of our secrets, I do want to I do want to go back to what you had said before we went on break, and that is the thing about how people say that God caused, God wanted this war to happen in Ukraine. God wanted the earthquakes that have come. God ordained it, predestined it to be so, and God, all these things. I am a follower of Christ, but I always tell people I'm not your typical follower. I do not believe the Bible literally. I have to understand that there are metaphors, there are similes, there are, scenarios, there are stories that point us, if we search deep enough, to something greater than ourselves, but that we cannot blame the situations in our world. We can't blame God for when things are good, and we cannot blame the devil when things are bad. We have to know, chaplain, and from what I have lived, we have to know that we are the ones, the choices that we make determine the good and bad, not only in our personal lives, but in our lives as a nation. The choices that we make determine that. We don't take care of the earth. We don't take care of the environment. We throw plastics in the ocean. Whenever someone has a birthday, we give all these balloons to plastic, and then we punch holes in them, we throw them away, and then the birds get them and die. And just all of these things that happen, that we don't want to sacrifice anything that we want for the good of everybody else. And so we have ended up in the predicament that we are in. We can't blame the devil for that. The devil did not make you do that. You did it because you wanted to. You cannot blame God for it. You cannot say, well, oh, this is so good, so it must be God. Certainly, yes. I always give God thanks for my life, period. Whatever is going on in my life, I offer God thanks and praise because that's what I know to do. That's what has worked for me, okay, that has kept me sane. But I do not blame God. I don't believe that somewhere or another in the sky or wherever God's ledger is, that it was written down that on February the 13th, Diane Griffin Jackson was going to meet Michael Harold Davis on Plenty of Fish. I don't think God is that trivial about stuff. I don't think God has too much to do to be too caught up in Plenty of Fish. What I see God doing is orchestrating my life in such a way that when I do meet my husband, like I did meet him, then God can show me if this is something that I should pursue, if I should continue with. Why? Because my life is truly ordered by God. Do I make mistakes? Big time. I screw up royally. I'm in a mess right now, as a matter of fact, right? But it's not because God did it or God wanted it to be. It's because of my choices, things that I've done, things that I've said, the way that I behaved. And I do believe that when people begin to see it like that and blame themselves for what they are going through and for what we're going through, then God can step in. Just like with the Israelites. I have a hard time with that scripture where God sent the Israelites, told Moses to go to Egypt, and set everybody free. I believe that. I believe most of that, right? But then for God to tell Moses to take the people to Canaan, kill off everybody off, just like Russia is doing right now, right? Just like the United States has done in all the countries it's been to. Kill off everybody over there, take their lands. You're going to get a chance to live in some houses that they built, and you're going to drink the grape wine that they made, and kill them off. Kill off the mothers with the pregnant mothers. Kill off the babies. Kill off the cattle. Kill off everything, because this is going to be your land now. It just upsets me so if I have to believe that the story is just like that. Because then for me, people have made God into a vending machine. So you put something in it because this is what you want to get out. And then you tell God how you want the ending to be. And if it's not like that, then it's, oh, well, God didn't like me, or God is mad with me, or how could God, like I did with my son, how could God do that? But I had to accept the fact that there is life and there is death. There's a circle of life, right? There's a circle of death. It's a circle, and we all have to pay that ultimate sacrifice. We will all die. We don't know how. We don't know what's going to happen. But as long as there's hatred and greed and all these isms and schisms going on in the world, we will die in this world, not of our choosing, but because that's the world that we live in.
Well, I tell you, I'm grateful that we are alive right now because it could happen at any second.
Of course.
It just takes one of them.
Yes.
Russia,
Yes.
or the Ukraine, not the Ukraine, Russia or the United States, either one or any of the allies to push that button.
Yeah.
And it is over for
the whole
everybody.
world. Yes.
The whole world. The whole world.
Yes.
It's a serious thing. Pastor Sue makes the observation that we were made stewards and we have messed it up.
Yes.
And I also appreciate her making the comment to you, come on, be suspicious of the text. I love it. I love it.
Yes.
And quite honestly, in my opinion, there's not enough of us who are willing to step out and raise the critical questions behind the story that somebody has written from their perspective. Well, is that God's perspective? Isn't there more to it? I appreciate that. Now back to a couple of things that hubby. I tell you, we're going to have you back, Pastor. Your husband made the comment several comments ago, and I'm trying to find it. Something about here it is. Some may not hear it, see it, know it, but God has instilled in human beings self-correcting gyroscopes for and of morality. If that gyroscope is not adhered to, the gyroscope will self-correct. In other words, that noise can go on long enough until you say, as Pastor Sue and I have said, if it gets on you long enough, you will say, "Yes, Lord." Yes, Pastor.
Yes.
Yes, Pastor Sue. We are going to get to some of the book, but someone asked a question that I think.
Can I add one more thing, please, Dr. Anderson?
Please.
If I could just interject this, the gyroscope that Michael speaks of, it is there. It is going to self-correct, but if we don't allow it to self-correct, then it will self-destruct.
Okay.
And so I don't think we can separate those two things. That's part of why we have what we call good and evil in the world. If it doesn't self-correct, then it will self-corrupt. And I have enjoyed some writings of Phyllis Treble, and she said this one thing that has stuck with me for at least over 10 years. And she talked about the text, about this sacred text that we call the Bible. She said that we cannot rewrite the Bible, and we can't. I don't attempt to rewrite it. She said, but what you do is you read the text, you preach the text, but when you find hell in the text, then you preach the hell out of it.
Okay.
And so that's where I go with my preaching. So I'm a fireball, you see, because that's what I do. That's what I do. Yes. Did you not know that I have been somewhat blackballed in my community because I don't preach those 3 scriptures that folk just love to hop on about the LGBTQ plus community, because I don't condemn, I don't judge, I just love. I mean, I all that. And they won't let me come back to their church when I preach that. I have lost a couple of members of my own congregation because I preach love and acceptance and appreciation and value of all people. They don't like that in these little southern towns. So perhaps that is why the boards made sure that North met South and South, met North all those years ago. But let me stop.
Yeah. No, but that's a good thing for people to know. And we try to remind people that, that as you progress in your walk with God, by whatever name, that friends are going to drop off, family members are going to think you are crazy and drop off, and neighbors are going to want to move or you move because just a whole lot of things happen, but you are staying the course. I do want to get Kadata Dixon's question in.
Kadada.
Kadata
Uh-huh.
Dixon asked the question, what, there it is right there. What is the war, the inner turmoil that Melanie has to overcome in the book? Now we can get to the book. And does she overcome it by the end of the book?
Kadada is my daughter, by the way. So thank you for the question, Kadada. The inner turmoil that Melanie has to get through in the book is really a simple thing. She did not receive the kind of love and support that she needed as a little girl. She did not receive it from her mother. She did not receive it from her father or her aunts and uncles, or even the siblings who were, older than she was. She always felt by herself, kind of alone and ostracized. And so she grew up looking for that, and she looked for it in many, many ways through men in some ways, but she just looked for it, and she never did find it. And at the end of the book, she thought she had found it. But that's why there is a part 2 coming very soon, because we need to let you know whether she found it. But that is the inner turmoil, that she was enough, Melanie needed to know that she was enough. And we're going to find out whether she ever realized that and how she did it.
Awesome.
Yes.
Now, would you please read one of your stories?
Oh my goodness! There's only one story in here. It's a continuation. So
okay, one of the segments of the story. One of the segments.
One of the segments. Let me see something that's not too steamy. Okay, I'm gonna read one. But it's 9:30 already. Oh my goodness.
Yes, it is.
This has been so okay. I wanted to remind you that I remember I had taken some notes on my book, and I said as I've been reading, these past 2 weeks, the chapters in my book, I have found out that this story, the Phoenix rising from the ashes, is filled with all kinds of life issues. There's grief, there's single parenting, there's parenting with somebody, but it's like being single. There's faith, there's church, there's truth, there's God, there's afterlife, there are choices, legacies, death, doubt, peace, acceptance, perceptions, pain, joy, success, betrayal, sexuality, body image, naming God, idolatry, identity, young love, self-worth, guilt, trauma, fear, dreams deferred, and perhaps dreams denied, misogyny, sibling dynamics, settling for, and I said to myself as I was reading this book, I said, Tyler Perry, you can eat your heart out, because this book is on its way to a Netflix series. This book has all of that in it. So let me, I don't know, gosh, I had known I was going to read a chapter. Let me see. And you don't know which one you want me. Let's look at, okay, I'll look at chapter 3. All right.
Okay.
I'll look at chapter, I think it's kind of short, so I'll read until you tell me the time is up. All right. This is chapter 3, and it begins with a quote from Aristotle. The beauty of the soul shines out when a man bears with composure one heavy mischance after another, not because he does not feel them, but because he is a man of high and heroic temper. That's Aristotle. Chapter 3. Whether providence, happenstance, or just that, I will never know. As my resolve was weakening and William was becoming progressively loud, the kitchen door opened. Natalia, my daughter, had heard the commotion and came to investigate. She took one look at me, another at William, and summed up what for her was just about enough. She threatened William, told him to leave, and said he would not be coming into that house. The thing is, there was never any love lost between these two, and this day would prove to be the last straw for both of them. Natalia did not mince words. She had been an outspoken child from the time she was just a wee little girl, demanding her right to be heard and obeyed, actually. Amazing how a child can have such a commanding presence that follows her throughout life. There were times in school when teachers would call me because Natalia dared speak against some of their decisions regarding her, in particular disciplinary measures. I was often so proud of her for having the courage to be in ways that I secretly coveted. Neither her mother nor grandmother possessed that kind of boldness. Natalia stepped up to William, told him to leave. The argument that ensued between them was awful. Needless to say, everything they held within themselves at my expense erupted like hot, salty ash from an overflowing volcano. Words, actions, both said what had languished in their hearts and minds for 16 years. Their words and actions stirred a primal reflex within me that had lain dormant for too long. It is safe to say here that I could always face William with less fear when Natalia was within close proximity. Is that enough? William, hmm? William stepped.
Pastor Sue, can we?
I can stop now and because this is probably a good place to stop. This is a good place to stop. This is a good book. You should order it. You should order it. Right
Uh,
work, right occupation is one of the eight. Okay. In chapter 8, I did use the term right work, and that's when I was called by God to preach to the ministry. And when I stepped into the church for my initial sermon, packed too, by the way, Reverend Doctor. And it was the first sermon that I had ever preached officially, And I knew when I sat down, it felt like I was home, that this was what I was called to do, who I was called to be. And when I stood up and opened the text and began to read the verses, that initial sermon time lasted 2.5 hours. Not me just preaching. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, I was, but an hour of it was me. And do you know that nobody got up to leave? No one said, time out, pastor, preacher, nothing like that. It was what I was called to do, and I have never regretted. That is one thing in my life that I can say I have never ever regretted. It was right work for me. Yes.
if you would please,
Uh-huh.
page 21.
Okay.
That closes out that particular story, and I think
Page
that, if you don't mind, would be the better place
to end it.
to end it.
18, 19. Which part? From the beginning?
Page 21, starting at the top. As I looked at the man
who had been my husband, those thoughts and more rushed up to me. Whether my daughter was right or wrong, she was my daughter. He had no right whatsoever to raise his fist or any weapon towards her in anger. I would not allow it to happen. Not again. I no longer needed an excuse. When I started hitting him, I have to admit that it felt so liberating, so bleak good. All of the pent up emotions and feelings and anguish that I had harbored for so long rose to the surface. I literally felt like shouting, "Hallelujah!" And that's my good word. Oh, I just wanted him gone, gone. And in that moment, for a brief second, I wanted to make sure he would be gone forever. I thank God, even today, that we did not need to hit him often or with undue force. He was a sick man and could only exert minimum effort. It seemed to take the officers forever to reach us. Actually, it did take an unreasonably long time, for which they apologized when they finally arrived. In the meantime, both my daughter and I kept William away from the door. I pleaded with him to get in his truck and leave, but it wasn't until he heard the sirens that he made any move to leave. I remember him looking at me. He seemed so forlorn. There were a few drops of blood running down his forehead. He turned to me, so pitiful, not so big and bad now, sad, really. All the fight was gone. Mark my words, he said, you will never be anything because of the way you treated me. You just wait and see. You won't ever have anything. 16 years summed up in a curse, not just on my life, our sons, maybe even down through the generations. If I never amounted to anything, how could our children? I felt bereft, alone, afraid, and yes, as strange as it might seem, hopeful. With those words and the piercing sounds of the welling sirens growing distinctively closer, I watched William get into his truck, close the door, and speed off with all the anger, hurt, amazement, and despair evident in one move. We had married with the intention of loving each other, raising any children we had, and doing big things together. But look at us. It is said that there is a thin line between love and hate. I discovered the truth in those words for myself that day. And so help me God, so did William.
My goodness. What a we I think we'll have you back sooner rather than later. We are taking a break in March.
Yeah.
But I would love to have some conversation around the words that are written in the book.
Yeah.
And we want to again show the audience where they can purchase the book. It's Amazon.com.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix.
Yes, or they could DM me if they want an autographed copy. Well, DM, they can send me a message right here in the chat to say,
okay,
I like an autographed copy, and I'll get in touch with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Pastor Sue has posted it in the chat, but they can also send a message directly to you.
Yes.
And where would that, and what is the address for that?
They could send it on Facebook. If everybody has Facebook, my name is Dian G Jackson on Facebook, so they can find me easily. Yes. My number.
Go ahead.
They can text me at 336-343-7486.
Say again,
343-7486.
7486.
And my email address is giftedvessel, GIFTED, vessel, VESSEL, @gmail.com.
All right. Telephone number again is 336-343-7486.
Mm-hmm.
Email address gifted vessel, all one word, no S at the end of vessels, correct?
Correct.
@Gmail. Spell vessel for me, please.
VESSEL.
Okay. Gifted vessel @gmail.com. That is awesome. And before I say goodnight, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more surprise from our guest tonight. And usually I will end the broadcast by saying, may goodness and mercy follow you all the days of your life, and good night.
Yes.
But instead, we are going to have you close us out every night that she reads her story on Facebook.
Okay.
She ends with this song.
Good night, sleep tight, and pleasant dreams to you. Here's a wish and a prayer that all your dreams come true. And now, till we meet again, adios, au revoir, good night.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. Thank you.